to order. The State of Rhode Island Coastal Resources Management Council's Rights of Way Subcommittee meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, May 28th, 2024. I would ask the record reflect the subcommittee members that are present as well as staff. And the first matter is approval of the minutes from April 23, 2024. Motions have made. Is there a second?
I'll second that, but I wasn't at the meeting.
I'll second it then. Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Staff report.
There's no staff report tonight, Mr. Chair.
All right. Update by legal counsel regarding procedural status of the matter, pending motions and scheduled hearings on motions as it relates to Spring Avenue right of way. CRMC file number 2020-11-084. I'll turn it over to Attorney DeSisto at this point.
All right, what I had proposed to do was just let the subcommittee know procedurally where this matter stands and then start scheduling the matter going forward. Would you gentlemen mind, and lady too, coming on up? I did not intend on having it back and forth, but if there is anything, you can sit. If there's anything that I miss or I should know, or I should add, please let me know. Now, behind you is Richard Langseth. Mr. Langseth has made a request to enter into this case because he has received a letter from the Weekapaug Fire District. So at the conclusion of what I have to say, I would ask that Mr. Langseth be allowed to address what he has sent in terms of his request, which will be taken up with the other matters. Can you identify yourselves?
Michael Rubin. I am the attorney for Caroline Contrada.
And good evening, Gregory Schultz, Special Assistant Attorney General for intervener Peter Nerona.
Sarah O'Toole for the town of Westerly.
Thank you. So the lawyers have been busy in this case. And what you have is some recent motions. And the first one I'd like to just bring to your attention is the motion to issue subpoenas from the Weekapaug Fire District. They want to issue a subpoena from Matthew Ferrara, and that's for his testimony and production and inspection of documents relative to the Spring Avenue extension. Mr. Ferrara was on Caroline Contrada's witness list. However, his name has been withdrawn. His name came up in a deposition, and it appears to me that the WFD, which I'll refer to him as because it's faster, still want to a subpoena on Mr. Ferraro. That would require some action by this committee. That's one. The second one is a motion to issue a subpoena to Save the Bay for its deposition and production and or inspection of documents relative to the Spring Avenue extension matter before the CRMC. Now, this is in connection with correspondence that had been sent in by Save the Bay on November 17th, 2021. Now, there are some statements in that letter about the access point, but even WFD notes that Save the Bay later retracted these comments. That it appears to me that that's correct. But they are asking for a subpoena to depose WFD, notwithstanding that. So, and I'm assuming that's a keeper of records deposition, correct?
My understanding is that they are looking for more of a person of most knowledge, person with the most knowledge of 30B6, right?
Is it a 30B6?
That's my understanding. I don't think it was specified in their motion.
But that was the intent of it?
I think so.
Thank you. On May sixth, the WFD filed a motion to issue a subpoena to the Rhode Island Saltwater Anglers Association for the same reasons, under the same format. There is also a motion to strike from the WFD, and that is in regard to the expert report of attorney Justin Shea, which is offered by the town of Westerly. The WFD says that it's not admissible because it is filled with legal analysis. And they have some arguments on that, but there's the motion to strike. They also filed a motion to disqualify Susan Cornacchia as an expert and to strike her expert report offered by Caroline Contrada. She is an archivist. And it's my understanding that Mr. Rubin has objected to that motion to strike, correct?
I have, thank you.
On May 15th, Caroline Contrada filed an objection. There it is, sorry. Now, Westerly has objected to the motion to strike, Mr. Chair. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Sarah? Yeah.
Yes, we sent that
Okay.
in.
There's a motion to compel from WFD arguing that Ms. Contrada has avoided her discovery obligations. And this is an issue to a motion to compel the production of all non-privileged documents. And Mr. Rubin, you have an objection to that?
I do. I haven't filed it formally yet, but I certainly do object. I'll get that to you.
We have a motion to quash and an objection to the Attorney General's motion to quash. I don't have a copy of that filing, Greg. Have you guys sent that out?
I did, I actually left, my copy on my desk, but I did provide, both, Ms. Turner and the, info at, CRMC with copies of that. I'd be happy to provide, additional copies.
Okay, and this is because the WFD has filed a deposition notice with the Attorney General's office, and you're moving to quash that.
That is correct.
Okay. And the WFD is saying that the Attorney General is not just opposition counsel, but also a party because the RAG sought to intervene in this case.
I'm not going to speak for the fire district, but that I believe is some of their arguments. Yeah, and yeah, so we're ready to argue to that motion whenever the subcommittee is available for it.
All right, what I would recommend is that all of these motions be grouped together on the same evening because you're all here and you can all discuss them. Is that acceptable to the subcommittee?
It is from my perspective. Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Doe, there, I could inform the council there likely are going to be additional motions filed as well. They have not been filed yet, but I likely more are coming, whether motions to compel or similar motions.
Okay. So I think it makes sense to have them all on one evening.
And hope for the best, because it could, especially on some of these discovery motions to compel may take some time.
Well, we'll have the committee will hear the motion first.
Yep.
They'll make a determination. Now, the next scheduled Rights of Way Committee meeting is June 25th. I'm assuming that the Weekapaug Fire District can make that, but I understand Mr. Rubin can't.
Yeah, I wrote about a month ago anticipating that. I can't make it and neither can Sean on that particular night. I'm sorry, but I long planned obligations, and I'm not court excused. I don't have any court cases, to be honest with you. But, you know, I would be court excused if I could.
The next available date after that would be, what meetings do you have in July, Jeff?
We hold this for the full council, the fourth Tuesday of each of those 2 months, which would coincide with when we hold the rights of way subcommittee meeting, which would be the fourth Tuesday. So that would be the next July meeting, the fourth Tuesday of July.
Would it be acceptable to the subcommittee if these motions were scheduled for the second meeting in July?
It's okay by me. Ms. Reynolds, Ms. Gagnon, any issues?
Okay, before you take a vote on that, and I'm assuming that the legal counsel has no other comments other than that?
Oh,
I plan to file an objection to at least one of the motion for subpoenas. I will get that over promptly. And then otherwise, I believe there just may be a motion to compel that should be filed within the next week or so.
And the objections also?
Yes, I'm gonna get those filed promptly.
Thank you.
and Mr. DeSisto, I don't know if you want any information or updates on the related Superior Court matter?
We're gonna get to that after Mr. Langseth.
Yes,
Mr. Langseth, you made a request. Would you mind discussing it?
The Administrative Procedures Act allows a person at interest to do a cross-examination of a party during a hearing. And then I recognized that I was not presenting myself as such. The Weekapaug Fire District sent me a letter inviting me to a deposition, and the ACLU objected to that. However, the Weekapaug Fire District has never withdrawn that letter. And I feel that I have interest in the matter because I may be subject to a deposition. And I feel I can, for the public, offer some good questioning during the hearing, you know, in a meaningful and polite manner. So I wrote the letter to the CRMC asking that I be a party to the contract, to a party to the case, to the extent that I can cross-examine during the hearing.
I recommend that Mr. Langseth's request be addressed as part of this, to be treated as a motion and be set down for a hearing on that. So that legal counsel can state whatever they have to state in objection to it, but I do think it rises to that level.
Thank you.
Would we be suggesting the same night
Yes,
of the other motions?
Yes.
Okay.
can you make it the second meeting in July, Mr. Langseth?
Yes, I can, or any special meeting beforehand. This is dragging out.
Yes.
Mr. DeSisto, if I may, I'm just a little bit confused because I thought there was only one meeting in July and.
I keep saying second, the July meeting.
It's the one that
I
would
beg your pardon.
coincide with the
Yes.
second meeting if there were two meetings, okay.
Correct.
And,
Thank you.
and what date, just to be clear, what date? are we talking about?
July 23.
Okay.
So the motion would be to set down at that July meeting all of the motions that have been discussed and any other motions that are received at least 2 weeks in advance of that hearing, along with Mr. Langseth's request to intervene in the case.
Okay. Do I have that in the form of a motion? Motion been made by Mr. Gagnon. Is there a second?
second,
Seconded by Ms. Reynolds. Any discussion? Hearing none. I will poll the subcommittee. Mr. Gagnon,
Aye.
Ms. Reynolds.
aye,
I too, Raymond Coy, vote aye. On the motion, for all motions to be heard on the 7/23/24 date, as well as Mr.
Including Mr.
Langseth.
Langseth.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Schultz.
Yeah.
Update on the court case, or would Ms. O'Toole like to do that?
I'll give the update. So as you're aware, there's 2 cases pending in front of the Superior Court between the fire district, the town, the CRMC, and one of these cases involves the Spring Avenue matter. It was on for a decision on, I believe it was the 17th of this month as to whether or not the cases would be on track for the land use calendar. The motion filed by the fire district for the cases to be heard on the land use calendar was denied. Judge Respallo sent us an email shortly afterwards as to the status of the cases in general. And in that email, there's no date that's set for the motions to dismiss, which were filed by the town and some of the other parties in the Spring Avenue extension cases. There's some confusion as to whether or not he's going to be handling the motions to dismiss or if it's going to be put onto the regular motion calendar. However, there's no dates on that yet. I'm hoping that we'll have the dates for the motion to dismiss, as soon as possible.
Thank you.
And I just want to add, certainly the Attorney General's office has no concerns with doing discovery here because that is, in my opinion, very transferable. If the court were to indicate that that the correct forum for this matter is Superior Court, it would be nice to have a decision on that before a hearing was to begin here. The Attorney General's office doesn't want to waste anyone's time on a hearing that potentially would not lead anywhere if the Superior Court were to indicate that they had jurisdiction. Just for the record, I'm not sure where that will be. Unfortunately, the motions to dismiss probably will not be heard in June, probably safe to say.
Yeah, they didn't give any indication as to when it would be heard, but just on the regular track of getting it scheduled on the motion calendar, I would be very surprised if it was in June.
And the parties here had filed our motions to dismiss long ago. And in fact, we had hearing dates in early April, and they were passed over. So we have been doing what we can to move that along as fast as possible.
If I may, just to add a daylight between Greg and I on this, because, and just a tad, and that is, my view of it is unless and until the Superior Court orders that this subcommittee and this council cease and desist, that humbly, I believe that this council and the subcommittee should go forward, no matter what's happening in Superior Court, except for such an order. And, obviously my client went through great lengths not to be a party in Superior Court. She didn't want to subject herself to monetary liability. We see this council and especially the subcommittee as the forum. And until the Superior Court specifically and concretely says otherwise, I don't think that we should, second guess the jurisdiction of this council.
Thank you. No action needed. I think it was important though to hear what's going on up at the Superior Court as this matter proceeds forward.
Any question? If we have a lot to do on the 23rd, should we start a little earlier or 1 hour going to be enough?
I've got to say, this could take some time. So if you want to start at an earlier time, I'm okay with that. And that's probably a good idea.
Half hour?
I don't know, I'll ask the director, is there an issue getting the room?
That would be the first thing we'd determine in the morning. We'd have to find out if we do have the space ahead of time. There might be something else booked till 5 o'clock, but we would look into that. Absent that, an hour, 30 minutes, what do you think you would need?
With this crew, take an extra hour.
Okay, 4 o'clock. Check it out.
That's optimistic.
We'll move you
in my
along.
opinion.
The pizzas have 4:06.
Yeah.
And this council, the council has been attempting, or the subcommittee at least, to hold our feet to the fire a bit in terms of imposing a June 15th deadline, at least theory on, all pending discovery, at least I imagine propounding it. Does this date that's further on out and that might call for yet further discovery affect that deadline in any way?
No,
Okay, I would agree with that. Thank you. I just wanted to be clear on that.
All right, anything else to come before us?
no, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
You would entertain a motion to adjourn the rights of way subcommittee meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made in second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. I will call to order the State of Rhode Island Coastal Resources Management Council meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, May 28, 2024. I would ask that the record reflect those council members that are in attendance, as well as staff members that are here as well. Prior to the formal agenda, I just want to state that since our last meeting, I have received a copy of a letter from Council Member Catherine Hall indicating that she does not seek or desire to be reappointed. And effective the date of that letter, it would be, she'd be removing herself from the council. So I just wanted to state publicly and on the record that personally and on behalf of the council, I wish her well and thank her for her years of service to the council. I think she brought integrity, intellect, perseverance, and dedication to each and every meeting. She always had some good questions and they led themselves to a full discussion, and where I felt comfortable that any decision that was made or vote that was taken by the council was well vetted, and we heard all sides of the issue. So I know she's not here tonight, but public, I just want to say thank you to Katie. We'll miss her, but we thank her for her years of service. And with that, next would be approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, May 14, 2024, and entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Motion approved.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Subcommittee reports, Mr. Willis.
Mr. Chair, there's one subcommittee report. The Rights of Way Subcommittee met earlier today and decided that after a very detailed report by legal counsel on matters up to date on the Spring Avenue matter, the subcommittee moved that on its July 23rd meeting, the various motions that have been filed to date, plus any others that are in progress to be submitted, but up to 2 weeks prior to that date, will be heard and voted on that particular day, as well as the issue of whether or not Mr. Langseth, who has requested the subcommittee to be an intervener here, will also be on the agenda for discussion and action on that date. We also, at that meeting, the Rights of Way Subcommittee decided that given those two issues, the amount of time needed would probably surpass its 1 hour usual slot for timeframe. So we are going to effort getting this room on July 23rd to have the Rights of Way Subcommittee meeting begin at 4 p.m. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Willis on his subcommittee report? Hearing none, staff reports.
There is no staff report tonight, Mr. Chair.
Okay. First matter on our agenda would be Revolution Wind Cable Burial Plan as required by condition number A of Assent number B 2021-07-005. You want to intro or do you want to?
Well, I can intro. I'm going to turn it over to Justin Skenyon, our staff who handled this, but this matter is here for really one purpose only. If you all remember when we approved the Revolution Wind project in state waters, it contained the Assent that was ultimately decided by this council contained several conditions. One of which was that a cable burial plan had to come back to the council for basically ratification, as there was still some outstanding issues that staff wanted answered. We have been working with the developer to have those questions answered and the stipulations addressed. That has happened. It's in front of you tonight, and Justin can handle the staff report and brief on those issues.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, just to follow up, as the council may remember, as part of the recognition for the category B Assent was that the applicant Revolution Wind had to put together a cable burial plan, which is stipulated. They have come back, they've submitted it, and include some basic things such as schedule, what the expected peril depth is, if there are any areas, and contingent areas of major concern, and possible contingencies. What they have submitted supplied all that. It's displayed impacts and what we assumed were inconsistent with what we reviewed. They expect to complete, they provide a schedule that shows the work expected to complete in the upcoming dredge window. The methods that they used, both jet plowing and mechanical, are in line with what was approved in the category B Assent. Everything follows what we have on the year restrictions, include what we requested as post-burial surveys. Throughout the entire pathway, they have indicated that they achieved the minimum flow area depth of 4 to 6 feet. Each section of the route, we've asked them to outline in detail what they expect to, like how they expect the area to be. They have done so. Project will have minimum impacts during this time, at least as much as we can ensure. While this may have some potential small changes due to vessel types, what we expect to see now with the kind of vessels is what we expect to see for the actual construction during this September. We expect this to take only this dredge season, and that is it.
Thank you. Any questions of either Jeff or Justin on what's been presented? Excuse me.
Jim.
Okay. Attorney Main, anything to add before I ask for anyone in the public to speak?
No, we do have Kristen Trudell for the project in case anybody has any questions.
Okay. Is there anyone else present this evening to speak in favor of the application? Or it's not the application, I'm sorry, on the comments. That wishes to be heard. We've already had a vote on it. And so you wish to be heard?
Yeah, I just had a question on, when they're dredging, if they hit debris, are they gonna pull them out and get rid of them or just pull them off to the side?
And through the chair, Justin.
Because that was a problem earlier in the dredging.
When you say debris, do you mean
If it's
boulders?
It could be a sunk boat, it could be anything, any type of debris down there that's big. Where are you gonna put that debris?
If there's any sunken vessels, there's not expected to be. They've scanned the entire area.
Yes, I understand that.
If it is, then it's probably an archaeological site and they'll have to divert around it. In that case, potentially. I mean, you have to see what kind of vessel it is. We know this is a pretty well-known, well-dredged corridor. We know where any potential vessels at this point.
I need to get your name, please, if you're gonna speak.
Owen O'Rourke?
Owen?
Yeah, and I only have one other question. Are they gonna be doing it on incoming tides and outgoing tides?
It will be a 24/7 process.
I know in the bottom of the river, there's a lot that was dumped in there over the years. There's a lot of aqua farms around there.
There's a couple.
Are they gonna be notified that,
They have been, they were involved in this process.
okay, and the water will be tested?
There's gonna be a very relatively small amount of material, with most of it expecting to wind up back into the trench from which it comes out of.
Yeah.
Part of this plowing and jet plow process, it relies on covering the cable as quick as possible. So as the material gets scooped out, it gets pushed back in. While it is a concern, but it's not a major concern because this stuff is kind of in line with what we see during storms for terms of, depth and change.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else wish to be heard? State your name, please.
You're talking about something else.
Jump on something else.
You were talking about the Revolution wind cable.
I was just asking a question.
Okay, anyone else that wishes to be heard on that? Okay.
Was my presentation? Yes.
All right. So at this point, staff, and I'll ask you, Justin, based on all of the material that's been sent in to you for your review as required, is it your recommendation to ratify
And accept.
and accept the plan that's been presented?
Yes, that is staff recommendation. It's my, yeah.
So a motion from the council based on staff recommendation and the presentations that have been made here tonight. Mr. Gagnon?
I would move that we accept the cable burial plan and ratify and accept the plan.
The motion has been made by Mr. Gagnon to accept and ratify the plan. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Izzy. Any discussion? Mr. Russolino?
I would just like to say that the staff has reviewed the equipment and methodology described in the work plan and its appendices and find them to be sufficient. For that reason, I'll be voting in favor of the motion.
Thank you. Okay, I will now poll the council. Mr. Russolino?
Aye.
Mr. Gagnon?
Aye.
Ms. Reynolds?
Aye.
Mr. Flynn?
Aye.
Mr. Izzy?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
I too, Raymond Foyer, vote aye. The motion has been approved unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Justin. Next matter is applications requiring a special exception before the full council for review and action on a final decision. That being 2023-04-094, Rhode Island Department of Transportation. Representatives from Rhode Island Department of Transportation present this evening, and if so, could you come forward, please? Good evening.
I need to swear you in. Please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and spell it for the record.
Warren Doyle, LORENDOYLE.
Lori Fasette, LORRFISETTE.
Okay, Amy has this one for us, so if you could please report.
Yes, thank you. Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you.
This is a continuation from the October 24th, 2023 council hearing, which I'm sure you all remember us discussing the rebuilding of the two bike path bridges in Barrington and Warren. At that time, at that meeting, two primary issues were raised that did not have sufficient answers for the council. The concerns were impacts to the recreational fishing that existed along the previous bike path spans and the impacts to a nearby marina as raised by an objector who owns the nearby marina. The council adjourned and charged DOT with answering those concerns. Subsequently, a meeting with the DOT team and CRMC was held in November of 2023, and the resubmission package was submitted in February 2024. The package needed some additional information, but was sent to public notice as it contained the bulk of the information that was needed. The revisions that were submitted include the addition of riprap scour protection on the in-water piers of both bridges, and the addition of two fishing access areas, one on each river. One is proposed to be a timber pier, and one is the utilization of a temporary earthen bulkhead, which will become a permanent bulkhead and improved
for fishing access. The retaining and improvement of that bulkhead requires a new special exception beyond what was originally submitted, as that bulkhead was approved as a temporary measure to be removed.
Which side of the river is that on?
That is on the northwest side of the Palmer River.
Please hold your questions until the presentation is done, please.
In fact, both of the fishing accesses are on the northwest side of the river. The fishing pier is on the Barrington River, and the bulkhead is on the Palmer River. With the resubmission, the bike path spans remain 14 feet wide, a 10-foot bike path with two 2-foot side areas. The applicant has addressed in their resubmission and subsequent additional information packages the limitations to constructing the 2 bike path bridges the same width as previous. In addition, the applicant did a hydraulic study of the Barrington River to further investigate the concerns raised by the marina. That hydraulic study indicates that the flow has increased, but it does not directly impact the marina. The resubmission was sent to public notice twice. First with the original February submission, and then again after the proposed timber pier was relocated. It was originally proposed to be relocated on the northwest side of the Barrington River, immediately adjacent to a residential lot. That homeowner objected to its location, and DOT relocated it to the opposite side of the river, where it is further out on the bike path embankment and less impact to any residential development. With that change, we renoticed the project again, noting specifically just the relocation of that pier had changed. During the public notice period, objections were received. They were considered by staff as detailed in the staff report and were considered by staff to not rise to the definition of a substantive objection. Regarding the standard, the Red Book standard to provide a similar type and level of access. The remedy to not meeting a standard is a variance. In explaining why and how the bike path bridges cannot be constructed at the same width as previous, the applicant has met the burden to obtain a variance. Excuse me, regarding the new special exception, the creation of the new fishing access utilizing the temporary fill from the bulkhead will result in a permanent fishing access which is near to public parking at Police Cove Park and will be handicapped accessible. It is staff's opinion that the special exception criteria has been met. Staff has no objections to the approval of this application. Should the council consider both the variance and the special exception criteria met?
Any questions of Amy from the council?
Just.
Mr. Gomez.
I'm going back in memory on the meeting we had, and there was a lot of discussion on the tidal flow. Is that the purpose of the riprap, to try to break that up and slow that down? Or what, we had discussed things that would, you had a tie-up section on the west side of a small marina or something like that. Was that the one that was worried about bringing boats in? And
yes.
tying them up at, when the tide was running?
Yes. It's a question, I believe, for the applicant. I don't believe the scour protection is specifically for the tide flow as it relates to the marina.
We did discuss that issue.
We
and
did.
I thought we came to a point that we had some resolution on it. But
It was not resolved at that meeting, and that is why the applicant did the hydrologic study to
Okay.
determine where the flow was, where it was the greatest, and that was,
Yeah, which seemed to be the biggest problem that we were facing, actually, except maybe the fishing access.
yes, the two issues from the previous meeting were the fishing access and the marine. Yes.
Thank you for refreshing my user mind.
Ms. Silva, did you have an opportunity to review the findings from the, what's it, hydraulic study? Did I say right, the hydraulic
I
study?
did, yes.
Okay. I'm just asking to make sure that, for my sake, that that's been considered in your opinion.
It was, yes.
Okay. Ms. Daisy?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Amy, you said the DOT provided an explanation as to why they can't widen the bridge to provide more than 2 feet of travel for bikes on either side of the bridge. Can you concisely explain their reasoning?
I can quote a portion of the reasoning from their submission, which is in my report. The DOT stated that the width is driven by the limitations of a prefabricated structure, as well as the existing overhead wires and challenges involved with installation of that structure. The application narrative that DOT submitted states, additional widening would require a substantial volume of fill within tidal waters, particularly given the increased bridge heights, and would introduce fill to coastal wetland previously. That's exactly how it's written. I believe it's saying not previously proposed. The added weight of a widened bridge would necessitate an additional pier in the river, and preliminary cost estimates to widen the bridges would far exceed the cost budget. Summary of what was in their submission.
I don't know if this is in purview, but it seems to me that a 2-foot bike path on a lane, it's a 10-foot like a 2-foot sidewalk. It's a 10-foot bike path and a 2-foot sidewalk. Well, that's good. That gives me a little more comfort. And I assume with these other fishing areas, there's going to be no fishing from the bridge.
I would assume so, yes. There will be, I believe there will be no fishing from the bike path bridges. The 2 bike path bridges are proposed to be where they were previously an open deck with essentially a fence along the sides. They are proposed to be a truss system now, so they're going to look like a miniature I-95 bridge with the metal arch truss system. So presumably the truss system would prohibit fishing just due to its structural nature.
Did anybody do the math on the additional 2 feet? Did we ever have a number for what that might be? Hopefully it's not a pay me now, pay me or pay me
As far
later
as
thing.
additional cost,
No.
there was not one supplied in the submission.
Yeah. So there was some kind of an impact because of that 2 feet. I thought it was monetary. Probably change the design structure.
According to the DOT, it would change the design structure because it would be that much heavier. It would require additional pile supports.
I remember now.
There's overhead wires that have been a concern from the pre-application meetings and being able to get the construction done with
Yeah,
those.
so it
overhead
really was a
wires.
lot more than cost. It was changing a design and there was a substantial amount of effort to get the extra couple of feet, I think.
That is my understanding, yes.
Well, thank you.
Just have to follow. There was an objection by a homeowner who said one of the fishing areas, it may have been the bulkhead, was about 50 feet from his house and he was objecting to it. Was that objection the one that was resolved?
It has not been withdrawn. But it was, in my opinion, resolved by relocating the proposed fishing pier to the other side of the river.
Okay.
It is no longer adjacent to that
So
gentleman.
it's that, it was that objection.
Correct, that gentleman, if you looked at the previous plans from that February public notice, the bike path embankment came out and the pier was proposed and his property was right there and he objected to its location.
Anything else, Mr. Izzy?
No.
Okay. Mr. Flynn?
I have some questions, but I'd like to hear a presentation from the department if
Okay.
one is forthcoming.
So before that, any questions of Amy before we have DOT reps make a presentation? Okay. Please proceed.
If it's okay, we're gonna ask our consultant to come up also,
Sure.
so they can. Speak up a wee louder.
Just waiting for this gentleman in the back. I'll catch them up together.
Gotcha. Brian, what's the best area for?
Set up on the opposite side,
Sure.
because the camera, you're gonna try to block the camera out. I'd like to try to get that's happening on the camera if possible.
Okay, all raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please state your names and spell them for the record.
My name is Chris Hund, CHRISHUND, work for VHB. My name is Andres Aveletto, ANDRESAVELEDO. I work for the Yetna Bridge Company. I am Jeff Klein, JEFFKLEIN with VHB.
Can you begin your presentation?
So the overview, Amy covered a lot of it. We are here to address the concerns from the last meeting. And we have done that. I don't want to repeat everything and take your time. But the fishing access and the study was done. We have done outreach. Our business outreach section has conducted in-person meetings, virtual team meetings, and calls with multiple constituents, with residents. So they have done the outreach and presented the plan to them. And I think for the proposed solutions, I will turn it over to VHB to explain how we address the fishing access and then about the study.
Andres from describe first. Yeah, so good evening. My name is Andres Aveletto again, a project manager at the Yetna Bridge Company. So just to tell you guys a little more about this project, the primary goals are to replace the closed and structurally deficient former bike path bridges and restore connectivity to the East Bay Bike Path. improve navigation by eliminating bridge piers and increasing vertical clearance. This has been a requirement of the US Coast Guard. Provide a widened bike and pedestrian shared use path and remove the existing temporary detour path and restore the roadway bridges to their original conditions. And as of the last meeting we had in October, the project will also include independent structures at each bridge to enhance fishing access at the site. So Amy, I apologize, but I feel like I do have to clarify a couple of the points that you made. So the quote that's in the staff report is actually, it is misquoted a bit. So just to kind of go over some of the challenges, there are overhead wires directly over these bridges. They preclude sort of traditional construction techniques. There's strong tidal currents which complicate barge-related activities and narrow approach causeways built along like sensitive salt marsh. They also limit like your land-based operations. All these constraints are what make widening the structure or other proposals a challenge. So I can read the correct piece of the staff report because I feel as though I just want to correct the record. So I believe it states additional widening would require substantial volume of additional fills in tidal waters, particularly given the increased bridge heights, and would introduce fills to coastal wetlands previously avoided. That's the correct piece there. The added weight and width of the widened bridges would jeopardize the ability to implement the launching alternative that has been designed specifically to avoid conflict with overhead existing electric wires and communication wires. The added weight would necessitate an additional pier support in the river. And as we will kind of like to get into, we just want to describe how some of these changes are satisfied by our current proposal. So one thing that just to get back to the presentation, Aetna and VHB were selected as a design build team through the innovative approach that we proposed to overcome these challenges. So we are proposing a modular truss type bridge, which can be constructed on land and launched across the waterway to avoid overhead utility conflicts. There is a single pier support proposed at the center of the span, and the raised bridge elevation to meet the US Coast Guard requirements that I previously mentioned. But to clarify another piece of Amy's presentation, the overall width of the structure is actually 21 feet. That's out on the truss. And the bridge features a 14-foot wide shared use path along the center line of the structure. So there is no distinction between the 10-foot area for bikes or 2-foot area, 2-foot shoulders. This is just a 14-foot wide deck with, railing spaced at 14 feet apart from each other. I know there was a concern raised about fishing access previously due to the comparison between the historic bridges and this kind of proposed new arrangement. So I think that I want to mention that to better understand the fishing use at the site, we looked at all the available areas that the public currently fishes at the area. These include the rocky banks along the bike path causeway, the public dock and bulkhead at Police Cove Park, and the protected sidewalks along the Route 114 roadway bridges, which are just south of the bike path bridge. So I felt that to sort of enhance all these available fishing locations, proposing new independent fishing structures at the fishing, consisting of a fishing pier at the Barrington River and a bulkhead at the Palmer River would give anglers better access because we could build them closer to the water level. We could design ADA accessible fishing stations, an enhancement that was not previously provided. We could locate these structures away from overhead wires, navigation channels, mooring fields, and we have parking provided available at the Police Cove Park. And I also want to state that RIDOT has made several communications to the point that there will not be any prohibition on fishing from the new structure. The decision to provide independent fishing structures adjacent to the bike path bridges is to offer an attractive alternative to anglers from fishing from the bridge, and therefore benefiting the rest of the path users by sort of by mitigating potential use conflicts that could arise between anglers and pedestrians. So to kind of indicate or sort of depict how these bridges are similar.
You want to show that to council first, sir?
Yeah.
Before we do that.
These are schematic of the existing, the historic bikeway bridge and the proposed cross section.
This wasn't part of your.
Yeah, these cross sections have been provided in all the plans, yes.
Okay.
So I just wanted to, one key point that that we want to just highlight is the fact, as we mentioned before, that fishing only occurs on half of the structure, or on one side of the structure at a time, right? We talked about how the current changes. Yes. So so we talked about how, depending on which way the tide is going, the anglers are going to be on that particular side of the bridge. So again, now, understanding the fact that the historic bridge had a 10-foot wide path in the center and 4-foot elevated sidewalks. Realistically, when someone was fishing on a sidewalk, folks using the bike path were limited to that 10-foot lower deck. So in reality, they were 14 feet, maximum of 14 feet away from the angler. That's the same offset that's provided by the proposed design. And we thought that this sort of graphically depicts that. But again, the key component of the proposal is to provide an alternative location. You know, there's gonna be nobody prohibiting the use from the bridge, but it's just that having that additional amenity off the bridge seeks to mitigate what, you know, having a very heavily traveled path in close proximity to anglers. Again, this now looks holistically at the whole area where we've got documented areas of access for fishing along the banks, along the road with the 114 roadway bridge, which does have like a dedicated sidewalk that spans the same waterway. So that's kind of the deal.
I'll speak to the hydraulic modeling real briefly. We did a model of normal daily tides, highest astronomical tides, and 10-year storms, so 3 different models. The highest astronomical tides are moon tides once a month. And a 10-year storm is what the design requirement is for the area, for the project. We did that under the physical condition of the original bridge before it was removed, using the hydraulic data from the geometry of how that bridge was laid out with all the pilings in there. We did a model that modeled what's happening today after the demolition of that original bridge, showing the flows along the river that have increased since the demolition. And then we've also modeled the proposed bridge, which includes the riprap that Amy had mentioned, that was a design to protect the abutments and the piers as their primary objective. But one of the subsequent outcomes of the riprap itself also provides some benefits to the flows in the area. And what you can see from the graphics that we presented in the report is that the prior bridge hydraulic modeling lines up fairly well with the proposed bridge hydraulic modeling overall as a water velocity, speed, flow rates. So I just wanted to touch on that as well.
Any questions of either of the 2 witnesses that have spoken so far from the council?
Is that the end of the presentation?
Yes.
So I do have a few questions.
Okay.
Can someone give me a timeline of
the closure of the bridge, demolition of the bridge, and the request for proposals that originally went out on this project.
So we closed the bridge in 2019. We closed both of the bridges in 2019. And then we put out the design build contract and awarded it in 2022. The phase 1 demolition was approved on May 17th, 2023, and we completed that demolition during construction phase last year.
And when you put out the RFP actually went out in late 2021, I believe, correct?
Yes.
And that RFP actually had a preliminary design, but the new design doesn't depart from too much.
It has a base technical, we put out a base technical concept.
It looks very similar to what is being proposed. Did you ever consider putting out an RFP looking to replace the existing structure, not necessarily the railroad pilings that were there, because they would be put there for the purpose of the railroad, but to replace the width of the existing structure? Is that ever considered being put out to bid?
So when we hire our design consultants, they would come up with the scenarios that would best be aligned with whatever the constraints are in that area. So we rely on our consultants to give us recommendations, and then the department would review that as a group to say this is sufficient to be able to put out for the base technical concept. A design build contract is really, we put out that concept, and then whoever the interested teams are that propose to us, it's quite a lengthy process. But we would look at all of the scenarios of every proposer to see what best fits or matches based on what our requirements are, or constraints or restrictions, or whatever the criteria is by which we are looking to execute the project.
But you had already decided that replacement of the bridge at its pre-existing width was not going to be feasible. That, in other words, if someone had proposed to try to do that, they would not have been responsive to your RFP.
Well, so we put out base technical concepts all the time, and we get feedback from any design build team to modify many elements within our original solicitation by the ATC process or by their proposal. In the purpose of it is for innovation and to figure out how we can best execute that contract. So there's not a predetermined, we won't accept any changes, modifications, or innovation to any of our proposals.
But there'd be no motivation for a consultant to do that because you had already indicated what you're looking for. You had already indicated you wanted a 14-foot wide bridge. That's what your RFP called for.
That is our initial concept.
Let me ask you this, what level of public engagement did you have before that proposal went out to bid? Did you have any public meetings? Did you invite people who were either riders, bike riders, there's lots of them, or people who fish, to weigh in on what they would like to see? Was that done?
I do not believe so, but I don't know that with certainty. I would have to go back and check.
Because that used to be a common practice of RIDOT, and I don't believe it's a common practice anymore. I'm going to read to you something from Federal Highway about design build. It says projects that are still in early stages of planning with unanswered questions regarding scale, alignment, and other basic project features, and those that have not yet gained environmental approvals are not ready to be procured on a design build basis.
That's correct. We cannot proceed past 30%, which is the requirement in order to complete the NEPA documentation required by Federal Highway.
But the questions that you've been getting are actually regarding things like scale, not so much alignment, because the bridges are going to go where the old bridges were, but they are regarding scale. And you don't have environmental approval. If you did, you wouldn't be here tonight. So I question whether this was a project that maybe there was a different alternative method of procurement besides design build. I realize that's a popular method nowadays. But projects that have not yet gained environmental approvals are not ready to be procured on a design build basis. The decision was made to procure this on a design build basis. So I would question whether this was the right method. There's been discussion about the 114 bridges allowing for fishing, but they're posted to say no fishing. Who has posted those bridges to say no fishing? And how can we claim on the one hand that they're a suitable alternative when they're posted as not allowing that very activity?
Well, they're actually, the signs are posted directly over the span, where it's, the navigational lighting exists. So the sign actually reads no fishing with an arrow pointed at the other sign, and those are aligned directly over the navigational.
Is that clear to people? I mean, would you
got
think that those signs would scare people off?
I'm not sure. I just, I understand that that's how it's been historically since the construction of the bike path detour. That the bike path now travels down an 8-foot wide boardwalk along the northern sidewalk. So when that happened, those signs did get relocated to the approaches, sort of to dissuade folks, I guess.
Well, right now, I can understand that if you've got people walking their bikes across and you've got people fishing, that might be.
Well, but it's happening. I've personally been at the site quite a bit, and I've observed folks fishing off the 114 sidewalk.
Either way, we can make sure that the signs, that we improve the signage so that it is clear.
You'll get your chance, ma'am. I'm not sure.
They don't fit
Chairman will.
on the.
Stop.
No fishing.
Can you hold your comments, please? I'm not gonna say it again. Hold your comments. We will allow you to come up and you can say whatever you want.
I don't believe there's any signage on the Palmer River Bridge that says no fishing.
You made a statement that you're Andres, right?
Yes.
That people didn't fish on both sides of the bike path bridges in the past. I will dispute that.
No, at once.
No, they do. They do it on both sides at the same time. They did, because I've been on that bridge 100 times and I've seen people on both sides. And generally when people fish there, they're not casting, they're dropping. So you drop a line, and if you don't want it, the tide's against you, you don't want it to go under the bridge, well, you drop a shorter line. And if you wanted to go out, well, you'd be on the right side of the tide and let the line go out. But I have, and I
would you say predominantly the fishing
well,
occurs?
We still have the bridges. I could tell you that, but I would say I've seen people on both sides at the same time fishing. How many people with the proposal to the new fishing locations, which are an improvement from the original proposal, how many people would you say would be able to fish at the same time from those?
I don't suspect you'll find a guideline that will allow you to answer that question.
Well, I was just looking at it. I would say maybe 6 or 8 at the same time. That would be my guess. Whereas before you could have as many as 10 people on each side of the bridge, maybe 40 people at once fishing. So, one of the comments that have been raised by not only Amy's comments, but others of this, that the applicant is required to replace the type and level of access that have been allowed in the past. I can see that there is an attempt to provide some type, but there's no way it's at the same level. And the method of fishing here has to be casting. But one would have to cast their hook, their net, their line out to try to get out into the middle of the channel. Whereas before it was a dropping sort of method of fishing. And I guess as people who fish, which I don't, would have a better sense as to whether from either of the locations proposed, whether you could get a line out into the middle of the channel, which is sort of where you'd want to be. The question of the that they're 14 feet wide doesn't preclude fishing. The graphic you show with someone only fishing from one side makes it look more possible, but if people are fishing from both sides, on either side, the design itself, I think, mitigates the possibility of it's just not widening. That's all I have right now, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? I have a question. The original bridge, when was that built?
1880.
And what was the primary purpose of that being built?
It was a railroad bridge initially,
Okay,
and then it was transitioned, DEM converted them to bike path bridges
okay.
in the 1980s.
Was it ever built with the intent, specific intent for fishing?
It was a bike path. It was considered a bike path bridge.
With the gratuitous allowance of fishing?
Yes.
Am I correct in that?
Yeah.
Okay. And the proposed bridge, what is the primary purpose of the proposed bridge?
The replacement bridges are proposed for bike and pedestrian access.
Is the proposed bridge does it have any specific intent to now create fishing?
It doesn't prohibit fishing.
Okay. Would it be a specific intent of building the bridge to allow fishing, or would that continue the gratuitous allowance of fishing?
It would continue the gratuitous allowance for fishing in addition to other locations.
That's how I'm looking at it. I mean, just sharing that, you can tell by my questions. I think the primary purpose, as I look at it, is to replace the specific intent of the original bridge. There's been a lot of discussion about people that used to be able to fish there, now they can't fish there. And I think that some proposals are made to allow some fishing there, but I'm not seeing it as that being the primary purpose of a DOT bridge is for fishing. But those are my questions. Any other questions at this point?
Can I just say something about that?
Yeah, Mr. Flynn.
Sometimes a public infrastructure project can do more than one thing at the same time. And yes, the primary intent is to replace the bike path for bikes and pedestrians to go. But a side benefit of what was there before is that it allowed a place for people who fish, and many of them fish because they're trying to get food. I mean, they're not fishing just for the fun of it, they're fishing to eat. So one project can do more than one thing. I would use a comparison of, maybe it would have been cheaper to build the Newport Bridge in such a manner that as you're driving over, you couldn't see the water. But you can see the water. And that was done intentionally so that driving over would be a more pleasant experience than feeling like you're in the tunnel. Does that mean that the transportation purpose was any less? No. But sometimes you can do that and more. And that's my comment about this.
Do the towns have any say in what happens on the bridge?
It's DEM owned.
It's DEM period. Town has no way to put regs or say no fishing.
I don't know that. I would say that they would.
I can answer the question.
Okay.
The answer is no.
Yeah.
It's in part DOT, in part DEM. When there are injuries on the bike path, that goes to the state, not to the town. Because of that, they get to regulate it too. Town has some police powers if a crime is committed on the bike path. But other than that, cannot otherwise regulate.
All right, good. Just observation on fishing, some of which I'm kind of used to, but the best fishing from that bridge is probably at night.
especially if you have stripers in the area or even bluefish and things. That's when you're gonna get the big ones, and it's very tidal dependent. But, you know, if you're looking for striped bass and things like that, bite fishing's by far the best. Unless they're chasing small bait and blasting on the surface and things like that, which is probably not the case there, so. There's plenty of time for fishing. A lot of the people you see through the day, I mean, they're having fun, they're out there doing something, they're not catching a lot of fish. And I think I agree with Ray that that's kind of a secondary nature. And I think the big part of that fishing, if you were serious fishermen, would be nighttime fishing, which would minimize, I think, bicycle traffic and stuff like that. Just a point. If I were fishing there, I'd be at night, so.
Anything else at this point from the applicant? Okay. Is there anyone else present this evening that wishes to speak in favor of this application?
Just to have to speak to the application. Okay. And not specific to the release.
Gotcha. Okay. Or is there anyone else, or is there anyone present this evening that wishes to speak on the application? An objection to it?
Okay, for the applicants, to make it easier for the public to comment, could you please step back?
Thank you. Thank you.
Excuse me, will they be here to answer questions?
You can ask questions and direct it through the chair, but you can't ask them directly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, who wants to come up first? I saw some hands.
I'm guessing you're gonna swear me in.
No, sir, you're a member of the public. You get to speak.
Okay.
Just identify yourself for the record.
My
Just
name
identify
is
yourself.
Michael Woods. I'm here on behalf of the New England chapter of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. We're one of the parties that submitted an objection to this application. And I wanted to explain a little bit of what our perspective was. And I think I've got a couple suggestions here that I can bring up. So just to put a timeline on this, we first learned of this proposal back in October of last year. The reason it wasn't on our radar immediately was because there was no variance or exception listed in the public notice that had to do with public access. When that was resubmitted in February, that's when we filed an objection. That's actually piers were added. And the reason we filed that objection is because we didn't feel as though that plan met the requirements of the management procedures. And I'm going to very quickly describe that perspective. I agree with what Mr. Flynn said, but I want to make sure it's very clear to everybody on the council. So I'll ask you to use your imaginations here. If the folks in the back were sitting on the bridge fishing on this river, and it's a tidal river, so half of the day the current would be coming straight towards me, half of the day the current would be going straight away. When you're fishing off of the bridge, every single one of you from Mr. Hartman all the way down to Mr. Gagnon could be dropping a line in that river and they would all be floating down current, not interfering with anybody. And if the fish were down here, you could go this way. If the fish are over here, you can go this way. Now with the fishing piers on the side of the river, you can imagine if we gave Mr. Gomez to Mr. Flynn fishing rods and they were casting out into the river, what would happen in that current is eventually all of the lines would drift over onto the bank, either down this way or around the other way, depending on the direction of the current. And so that's the reason why in the previous configuration, this area could support dozens of anglers. These bridges are several hundred feet wide, and there's no reason you couldn't fit 2-3 dozen people on each of them. Whereas on the fishing piers, I have a lot of doubts that you could even put 3 people there during most of the day when the current is strong, and that those people could fish for any amount of time without interfering with each other, regardless of whether there's fishing or when they get a fish on a line and things tend to get a little bit more hectic and tangled and hurried. So the reason that we felt as though this didn't rise to meet the level that was previously enjoyed is because the number of people the site could accommodate was drastically reduced. Now, I want to address a couple of things here. First, the fishing pier plan does provide ADA access. I think that is commendable. I think it's important. But that being said, I'm not comfortable with using the provision of a new kind of access as currency to offset the loss in magnitude that I brought up. So I think that that is a good thing, but I don't think that it addresses the management procedures. When it comes to fishing from the roadway, I think there's a considerable difference for anglers who aren't comfortable with cars going at 25 miles an hour, maybe if they're following the speed limit, maybe faster than that, only a couple feet behind them while they're fishing, as opposed to on a relatively quiet bike path bridge that's usually not all that congested. And when it comes to parking, that's a set commodity. Both the roadway and the parking are a set commodity, and whatever decision the council makes here, those things are going to exist. So I don't think that we can look at those as real factors in the type and level of the structure that is under consideration here. Now, this is probably a good time for me to thank CRMC's staff for agreeing that the type and level was an issue. Although I would I don't know if I should disagree or express caution at the proposed remedy, which is allowing a variance here. The reason that I would be uncomfortable with that is because the first requirement of allowing a variance is that the applicant requested in writing. And I am not aware whether that request has been made. I haven't seen it, although I know there were thousands of pages in the file. What I do know is that in the public notice, there are many variances requested, but none of them are the public access variance. And so I'm concerned about adding that variance here without the public having had an opportunity to know that the council was going to waive one of the most important procedures that it has, in my opinion, which is ensuring that public access is protected. Now, I did want to highlight a couple things, and I'm glad that the applicants brought this up. But I'm going to look here at something from the file. This is a memo from May 3rd entitled Further Discussions on Fishing Structures. This is on page 21 of the supplemental materials. And in this, it's a VHB letterhead, but the applicant says that they are intending to allow fishing from the banks and the riprap of the structure, which I commend. There are provisions here to allow fishing from the Route 114 highway and things of that nature. And then most importantly, it says RIDOT wishes to restate, as was emphasized in their earlier memo, that they have no intention to prohibit or restrict public recreational fishing from the bridges. And so what I will do here before I step back or maybe field any questions that the council has is reiterate the original request that backcountry hunters and anglers made on this application. And that is that if this permit is granted, that we don't rely on the intent or the narrative of the application, but we say that so long as the structure is there, that fishing must be allowed from the bridge, that it must be allowed from the riprap, and that it must be allowed from the road bridge if that's even under the purview of this. But all of the things the applicant has said here that they intend to allow, we would like to have that in the actual permit so that people don't come back in a year and say, hey, these anglers are a little bit more pesky than we thought they were, and we're going to knock them off the bridge. If we're saying that we want to allow it, I would request that if an assent is given, that be a requirement. And I guess with that, that's all that I have. Maybe the final thing is that I do agree with the presenter that, you know, really the primary use of the bridge is the down current side. And so most of what's used is 10 feet for bike, 4 feet of that sidewalk. And so maybe there's a way here to move the anglers from one side to the other side with
24th meeting. And we are we are on the corner of County and New Meadow Road, 81 County Road. And we own the property and the marina, Atlantic Marine, that abut the Barrington Bridge and the East Bay Bike Path Bridge over the Barrington River. And we have lived at this property for 45 years. So I'm sorry when I interrupted there, but we've seen it all. And when we're in the house or out of the house, we can see out the windows of things that are happening. And we, more than anyone else, want the East Bay Bike Path Bridge completed. We want the detour that surrounds our house. Detour that surrounds our house gone. As our fences and cars have been damaged by the bikers, is devalued this our assessed property. So at the October 24th meeting, the public hearing, which was 7 months ago, it was said, I don't know if it was from Raymond Coy, I was gonna call you Arthur Toya. He said, I didn't call you Joanne, Arthur and Joanne. They used to keep their boat at our marina, wonderful people. It was said that temporary things were needed, an interim measure was needed by RIDOT to alleviate the situation for the Manila's Marina, because in the winter with the pilings down and the way the current is, the wind would blow and the water would come directly at the marina and ice flows, you know, would hit the pilings directly. This is the only year in 45 years that there's been no ice on the river. So God was good. It didn't form and didn't come down, but I want you to know that nothing was put in place by RIDOT to alleviate any current situation. Although we emailed our concerns and our requests over the past months and over all the months that followed that October 24th meeting. We even suggested that the east side should be extended to protect our property. There is a picture of that picture that you had. What they took down, what they took away that used to protect us, and that was gone. But nothing was done and nobody came to talk to us. And that last person said about outreach. No one really reached out to us after that meeting. And except for a meeting on February 16th where fishing piers were mentioned, we had and have been kept in the dark by RIDOT, and nothing new had been, I don't think anything new has been planned to resolve the dangerously increased current issue, except they're saying there isn't one. In March, though, Representative Jason Knight emailed that DOT was waiting on the results of this hydraulic study. So, and to come up with a firm plan on the current. And we did get that study. We finally did have a meeting at Atlantic Marine last Friday, May 24th. This is like one work day before this meeting. And that meeting was with the harbor master, Brian Hunt, who said he'd like to get together with us to go over these new plans with RIDOT, David Walsh, Andres at Avalito from Etna Bridge. And we did request that an engineer be there, and Andrew Prezioso was there. We invited Owen O'Rourke, who's a civil engineer, and Chris Lowe, our budding neighbor, and one of our boaters who's daily on his boat, Chris Condon. And when this hydraulic analysis was mentioned, I immediately put a call through to CRMC, and Amy took my call, and this was Friday, and she had these, she had Brittany Spurlock send these to us. which we got to reading on Saturday, just this past Saturday, and went through them, and we have so many questions, and we really wasn't a lot of time, and so we've had people looking at these. And we only had a short while to over these reports, and we have some issues that need to be addressed. The big issue right now for us is the riprap. And Owen was out in the water today taking some measurements for us. And we don't think that correct information has been given to CRMC.
Can I get up to speak to that?
Yes, I'd like you to.
Is there a time I come up and help?
Yeah,
Do you have any problem with that?
Rank's over the board.
because one of these pictures doesn't even have, one of these pictures that was submitted to CRMC does not even show a marina in it.
Okay, here's the thing. We've got a stenographer here. He needs to take down everything that's said. So two people can't speak at once.
Okay,
So you're here to assist. When you're speaking, you can be the only one speaking,
Okay.
okay?
let me do it, please, a little.
I'll start out about the riprap.
Okay,
So
the
Friday
setbacks.
we found out, I guess it was a variance for the riprap. So the bridge that they're building, they're actually gonna build it in sections and slide it across. But it's gonna start ramping up further back than the old bike bridge. It's gonna be higher than the old bike bridge, so. The structure, the riprap that it's on now, where the bridge is going up higher, they have to make that wider. So we were told Friday that they're gonna be putting more riprap into the water. Which is actually encroaching onto the marina, so we went out there this morning. Friday, they showed us exactly where it was gonna go. So can I draw a drawing on the board so everyone can understand what I'm saying? Is it okay if I did it last time? It explains it a lot easier.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Move it along.
So this is the existing riprap right here, how it comes out. The marina docks come over like this. Actually, this is. The marina actually has a boat ramp that's right here. So, and the riprap comes down here. So they proposed to come out, they said another 6 to 8 feet, which is over here. Actually, let me move this over here, which is very close to the property line. So from the new riprap in the water to the back of the boat is gonna be about 25 feet. In these slips, you have 28-foot boats, 26-foot boats. So when they back up, they're in danger of hitting the rocks on the new riprap that we found out about Friday. Because the ramp's coming up in the air, they have to spread it out. What would be nice is if they had a solid wall here. So these rocks wouldn't come down and encroach over in front of the boat ramp and the boats that have to back out. So these lower units on these boats, they're going down in the water this far on some of them. Some of the bigger boats a little bit further. But when you're backing up here, when your boat's that big, you're gonna hit it. It was really close before because it was another 4 to 6 feet that way. But there are some boulders that when this was built before, and the ice and stuff will push these boulders down. So when I go in the water, there's actually boulders over here in the deeper water that are out of the way. But when they come over here, this is gonna cause a problem for about 7 boats. So when they start backing out, hitting their outdrives on that, and they have stainless steel propellers, most of them have stainless steel propellers because they're going out in the ocean in the sand. That's gonna be a big problem, and that was just the riprap. The hydraulic test that they were talking about, it's a great study, they did a great job, but one thing that doesn't pick up is the whirlpools. The whirlpools out here, here's where the bridge is supposed to go. The whirlpools right here go down this deep. I fish the canal all the time. I see paper cups and everything get sucked down in these. If a little kid falls off the end of this dock and that's there, there's no way he's swimming out of it. There's no way anyone's jumping in the water to get him out of it. You just can't do it. You can go in here with the Zodiac and spin around in circles and not even be able to get out of it till the tide lets you go. So that, those studies don't pick up any of those whirlpools. And I wish I had videos of it, but when you're there, you can really see how severe they are. And that's happened, they were there before, but not as bad as now. They're a lot worse now, and they're a lot deeper now. So they put a buoy out, a five mile per hour speed limit buoy. It's gone.
No, it's there.
Oh, did it pop back up?
No, it's sunk. It's only
Oh,
this high,
well-
low tide.
So they've actually had calls to the police because they thought people were drowning. Once the tide's going out, the buoys that they have go underwater. And they splash like this. So you can't, the buoys go underwater. Sometimes you don't even see them splashing. They're just gone because the tide rips so much. So that was the riprap that's gonna really be detrimental to the marina. And the boat ramp that,
Hold on 1 sec. I think Ms. Silva, do you want to respond to that or?
Yes, it is my understanding that the new riprap that is proposed is for the pilings in the water. I'm looking at the plans that were submitted and there is no riprap being proposed on the embankment. It's a retaining wall.
That was on the old one.
So that's not what I reviewed. If that has changed from a meeting on Friday, which I was not a party to, that was not what the engineer and I reviewed, making the embankment
the
wider.
engineer that was out there, we walked down in the water, he took a rock and he went. No, let me do it again. Took another rock and he goes, it's gonna go right there. And then right where the rock landed, I made note of that. I went in the water today, we took measurements, we actually took pictures. And if I could show you, where's the picture that I? Oh, right
Sir, sir, can I ask you a question?
there. Sure.
The engineer that threw the rock, is he here tonight?
Andrew Price.
No, it's not.
PH.
Okay, can I get, do you mind if I ask someone from VHB or Aetna?
Go ahead.
All right, you heard what this gentleman just said. There was a meeting on Friday. There was a demonstration as to where the riprap is going. Is that accurate?
So I was present at the meeting. I think, Owen, you can understand, I mean, it was pretty not very scientific means of illustrating the extent. We did have cross sections that showed the limits of riprap there. Those are included in the application documents. Owen is correct, it's about 6 to 8 feet from where that riprap currently is now. However, it is well within the state right away and as, at the time on Friday, it seemed to indicate it was.
All right, I'm sorry, because everything's gonna go through the
Oh,
chair.
I'm sorry.
I've asked to go through the chair. Do you know how far away that is from the marina perimeter limit?
I don't have that.
I can tell you.
I wanna hear it
I'm
from
sorry.
him. Amy, the statement is that the riprap is going 6 to 8 feet to the south. Is that the plans that you reviewed?
I am looking through the plans that I reviewed, and
Jeff, on your feet.
I'm sorry. Can you come up and speak up here?
Sure.
You gotta speak, everyone has to come up.
I just wanted to clarify that the riprap that was described most likely on Friday, in the field, that's been the plans the entire time.
Yeah.
It's been at the abutment, throughout the project development, hasn't changed. The only change to the riprap is at the pier, that was done at the, that's the only change that has been made since October.
okay, I was looking for additional beyond, so, okay.
When I spoke with them, when they came out the first time, they said they were gonna build it up. Friday was the first time they told me it was gonna come additional 6 to 8 feet. Because I would have brought that up a long time ago. I would like to show everyone a picture of what it looks like right now. If I may, just take a quick glance at that.
Yeah, he can do it as a prop, but can't come in because it's too late to be submitted as evidence.
So if you see how close that is now, so when these bigger boats have to back out, if it's another 6 to 8 feet, they just don't have enough room. And that, the bigger boats were put down at that end of the marina because that's the only spot where we could actually, they would only fit. So by taking 6 to 8 feet away from that, you're taking away 7 spots at the marina. Unless they put small boats in there, but then that limits them to sizes of boats now. So it's designed to have the boats, these boats and those spots. There's been people in here for years with the way it is right now.
Is that high tide, low tide, medium tide?
This was 3/4 tide.
3/4 up?
Yeah, 3/4 up. So
there's a lot of water there at a lower tide.
at lower tide, they can still get out.
Would
Yeah.
show more, right?
Yeah,
Like-
lower tide, it looks a lot closer.
Yeah.
So, but when I first talked to the gentleman, he said, we're gonna build it up. He didn't say we're gonna build it out. So I assumed they were gonna make it steeper and not come outside the footprint. So the boat ramp is behind the boats. This is where the boats go in and out from the boat ramp. So you might as well, the boat ramp is gonna be, like really, really tight over there. So the riprap, right now it's 12 feet. When they put it in, it's gonna be, about 4 feet from the property line. So that's really, really pushing it. Usually when you have, if you're gonna do something, there's a 50-foot setback, they're already well past that, but they just keep going closer and closer. So it's gonna make it really hard for boating in there.
What's the distance between the new riprap line and the marina perimeter limit?
About, let's see, it's gonna be about 4 feet. Because we had, right now, the old riprap, you have 12 feet, 6 to 8. I'm gonna go worst case scenario and say 8, so I'm gonna say 4 feet. So that's really pushing. And if you actually go in there, there's big square cut boulders that are over the property line that came from there. And when the ice comes in, it pushes them right off the end, and they just, over time, they're gonna fall in. So if one of these boulders tumbles down, it's going in the path of a boat. Well, they're gonna already be in the path of a boat.
Amy, your hand up.
The plans that I reviewed on the west side of the Barrington River.
With the east.
I'm sorry, the east side, correct. When you're looking at an aerial photo, the right-hand side shows a retaining wall. It does not show additional riprap.
That's what we asked for.
So I'm looking, VHB and Edna, I'm looking at page 49 of the, agenda package, page 38 of the agenda package. It is sheet 7 of the plan set. Sheet 7.
If they put a wall in there, that would,
Okay, I will defer to my engineer who did review that stuff. So there's a retaining wall on top of that. Thank you, my mistake. My engineer did review all of this in the original. I'm reading the plans incorrectly. It is there.
And within the state right away as well.
Correct. It is entirely within the DOT right of way.
Based on that, does it change your opinion that you've rendered?
No, I deferred the review of the original riprap to Ross Singer, the reviewing engineer, who had no issues with this in October. And then he reviewed the proposed new riprap. I got confused when the gentleman said that this was new from Friday. So I apologize.
That's okay.
so is it unreasonable to put a retaining wall there, have a wall there so the boats don't have to worry about all the big stones? I think it's very reasonable, and that would solve a lot. Then they don't have to, the boat ramp will be operational, which is the tide's turning around. The boat ramp's actually going like this now because the tide's going in the opposite direction. But if they could do a retaining wall, which I think is very reasonable
You can make it.
and easy to do.
Okay. We're gonna take a 5-minute recess. We'll resume in about 5 minutes.
12-foot pieces, tar, I would imagine was asphalt, dipped poles that are still in the water. There's big broken ones still sitting on his property, on their property, that were never taken out of there. So for years they've been trying and they gave up on that. And that's one of the reasons I got involved, is because I know that I'm trying to help them. So we feel that's a very reasonable thing to ask if they put that in. That would solve the riprap problem. And encroaching on the marina itself. So, and I don't even have to tell you guys, normally there's a 50-foot setback. We're down to 4 feet now. So at a marina, so it's not like you're pulling your boat into the dock and you have room to zoom out like that. You don't have that option. You have to come in and basically back out to get out of there right now. So if you come over any further, it's gonna take anything away from them from getting in and out. As far as the current goes, we went over the plan Friday with them. I think they did a great job on it. I think they could do a little bit better with the center piling that they're gonna put in. If they extended that out another, and basically they're just driving piles, and if they did another 20 or 30 feet out on the other side of the bridge, that would deflect the water from coming over what pushes towards the marina. I think that would make a big difference.
You mean add to the north?
Yes, add to the north side of the pier. So right now, if it's gonna be 14 feet wide, I'm gonna run to the board again really quick. So here's looking at the bridge from the top. Right here, say that's midway, water's coming down. Actually, it goes like this, water coming down this way. Riprap's over here. A lot of the water, the majority of the water comes down here and it starts pushing over and it's pushing everything this way. If they extended this here, it would take a big chunk of this and force it straight through. And where the bridge span is here, you got the high ones. Right now, they have you going, because the current's coming over here, they have you going over here instead of through the center of the bridge. When the bridge was put in years and years and years ago, it was well known that they were gonna go do this and make it run smooth, straight through the middle. But this is very expensive, and we were told because of the power lines up top, they can't do it, they can't get cranes in there. They can do it, it's just expensive. But they chose not to have it go back to the natural flow, and this is the easiest way, especially with these bridges that they make where you're gonna just build it and push it out section by section. Very easy. Unfortunately, they don't make these bridges any wider, because if they did, you can make it wider for fishing, but they don't make them any wider. So that's as wide as you're gonna get. But this would help right here. And even if they put something right here, that would help the flow tremendously from coming over to the marina, which is right here. So, and like I said, the big whirlpools right here, a lot of this would negate a lot of that. And it would stop the big chunks of ice that come down. It would hit this, and if it gets through here, it's only gonna be as big as a garage as opposed to the size of a house coming through there. So in the pilings in the wintertime, when the ice is there used to be over 200 pilings here, and the opening was right here. So that water came out, it was like a sieve. It came really slow. In the middle, it was faster, but it still came through like a sieve. But now with it out there, it just dumps out of there. So that's what we would like to see, is maybe a little more thinking in the design of it to alleviate the water from coming in this direction. These are hot spots over here. And the fact that the water is going backwards where the boat ramp is. It's actually taken soil here and it's pushing it up on this part of the boat ramp. So we actually took measurements to there. One side it was, I believe, was 13 inches, and at the other side it was like, I want to say 30 inches. So the boat ramp, right when you get underwater, goes like this now. And where the boat ramp side is, you can see it's washed out about that much from the boat ramp. So you can see where the concrete used to be, and now everything's gone from underneath there. So it's slowly picking away at it. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions from the gentleman?
I talk a little fast.
Okay,
Maybe you ought to be like Bruce.
anything else?
There was actually one drawing I really was kind of curious about. It looks like the CRMC, I don't know where they got the picture or were given the picture. I think the DOT sent it to them. It shows a study, but it doesn't show the marina there. So how can you guys make the right decision if you don't have all the right information? So just the distances from the riprap to the marina, that was never mentioned anywhere. They sent pictures like this of, oh, here's our study. Well, wait a minute, where's the marina? Why would you send a study not showing the existing marina there? But for other pictures, for other things, it's there, but when it comes to a variance, the marina's not in it. I don't know why it would have been left out.
I'm not sure what photo he's referring to.
This is from the CRMC decision worksheet. So it doesn't show the marina.
No, those two images are from our water type maps. And so the marina is covered by the color from the water type. Those two images are in the report to identify only the water types being affected by
okay.
the project. So
I
the
understand that.
marina is covered by the color that indicates the water.
Okay, I understand that, but why would that be in the variance section? Why would you use that picture in the variance section and not show the marina?
Because
For variances, I figured we want to know what the setbacks are. If you don't have a boat in the marina sticking out of a slip where it normally is, or the pilings, or the docks, how can you do a distance on a variant if nobody has a distance to use? I don't understand how they can make a decision if they're not given the right information.
that image was for illustrative purposes only to indicate where the various water types are. There's multiple different water types associated with the project.
Okay.
And the fill in tidal waters and type 2 waters is what I was trying to point out with that image.
And we just got these Saturday, so, you know, we're trying to figure it out.
Yeah,
I feel we need more time to figure these out.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. But I just, it was upsetting to me to go through here and not see any actual footage. How many feet away would the riprap be from the marina, from the property line, or anything? It just wasn't included. And this gets sent to you guys from VHB, and you guys are trying to make decisions off of it. And I don't know, it just, I keep hearing one thing, I'll be told, yeah, we're gonna build that up, and then the next time we're building it out. In October, when we came here, the fishing pier, there was no fishing pier. It wasn't proposed, which they stated today it was a proposed. Originally, the fishing was gonna be off the bridge with 2 feet. A couple people up here, I forget who it was, pointed out, it's not safe, it's not dangerous, it's not ADA compliant. So that's why their new proposed fishing pier is being built. It wasn't that it was a great thing that they were gonna do. And people have been fishing off that bridge as long as it's been there, from what I understand. So to say it's just a train bridge or anything, there was probably people fishing off that before the first train went over it.
I was there.
I believe
I
it.
used to walk home from school, back to school, and I walked in the 50s.
So I know how long it's been there.
Can I get your name, please?
Stephen Maynella, PhD.
Oh, sorry, Steve may know.
Anything else?
Last time we were in here, we were told that the DOT was gonna do something to alleviate. And nothing happened. I'm afraid that when we leave here today, we're not gonna be called, nothing's gonna happen, and we show up at a meeting again, getting information. Is there any way that we can get in the loop? And when they're designing, or if they're gonna entertain doing something?
It's an ask, we can.
Another one.
If a decision is made tonight by this council to go forward with the activity, CRMC won't be involved in it other than getting a construction notice. So maybe the question's better raised to DOT to keep you all in their scheduling loop as to what they're doing is done and when. Because again, we'll only get a notice that construction is beginning if we approve it tonight.
The material we've gone through tonight just makes me more and more nervous. I mean, we talk about if we, accept what is presented to us tonight. I still got the safety concerns. I've got, there might be a liability issue because of the marina going on there. There's a question between riprap and whether we should be putting a wall and things look kind of like designed to cost, and it looks like we've got other things to be considering that haven't been considered, I would almost want to see some of these things taken care of and have them come back again. There's just too many little things hanging. And I'm not sure what we would attack. Amy,
Just to close the loop on the notification, if the council does not approve or continues the matter or requires another hearing, anybody that's already on the list will be notified of everything we do from this point forward.
I don't know how the members feel, but to me, it's pretty sketchy.
So can we respond to these?
Yes?
You'll have, wait a minute, you'll have the opportunity. Why don't we just let the public finish?
Yeah.
Then we can clear up and then the council deliberate.
So, just one thing, did they ever take into consideration the distances where they know they were encroaching? Did they ever take into consideration of doing a solid bulkhead or wall along there? Or is it just easier to throw more stones over the side and build a road out? Because it seems like everything's coming back to money. And unfortunately, all these decisions that are being made are detrimental to the marina and to a lot of the safety in that area.
That'll probably be addressed when they get up there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak?
Christopher Lowe, I was the abutter on New Meadow Road.
What's your last name, please?
Christopher Lowe, Lowe.
Thank you.
Sorry. So I just wanted to start first with just a quick discussion around the process, obviously. I think to the point that was made by Mr. Flynn earlier, my notice to myself that a fishing pier was being built 40 feet away from my daughter's swing set was a yellow envelope in the mail. I'm from Australia and a little bit different there, but usually people, if you're building a nice big house next to your neighbor and you're looking for a variance, you kind of go knock on the neighbor's door and you just say, hey, here's a heads up, this is, you know, some schematics, maybe I'm putting an extra floor on the you know, second floor or whatever it might be. I think the lack of involvement, the reach out must have been to everyone else other than me, even though when, you know, these plans were devised, just by, you know, I'm not an engineer, but, you know, looking at this plan, I'm the most directly impacted person. So I would have thought that a fishing pier being built adjacent to my property would have been a first port of call. So I think that was frustrating from a process perspective. From a you know, engagement perspective, I think the only time I've had any interaction with and actually I will give the contractor from my Aetna, as soon as I put in the complaint, and he literally called me within a couple of days and said, look, we've had a discussion. We have, you know, looked at pivoting the pier to the other side of the river. This should address, you know, some of your concerns. So I just wanted to say that was appreciated. I think to that point, a lot of these concerns that are even coming up now could have been addressed by, you know, some reach out, community reach out, neighbor outreach out, you know, 4 years ago. You know, if this bridge was closed in 2019, reaching out to parties at that point might have saved us all a lot of time, a lot of effort, you know, a lot of dollars. And I think that from a, you know, I know the rules are the rules, but I just think some sort of engagement might have now, you know, 80% of these discussions 4 years ago. My concerns that I made in our objection originally, you know, I still have some of those concerns from a privacy perspective. The pier, I see the pier as kind of like a congregation point. So if having 10 people, and I purchased the property knowing that there was a bike path next to it. But buying the property and having 10 guys or 10 people, sorry, fish, you know, somewhat equal distant across the bridge is somewhat different for me from a noise and sound perspective than 10 people aggregating in roughly, I think it's 24 feet wide. That generates the noise, and to what I think I forget his name, but the man representing the fishing association, most of the fishing is done late night. So people are just more likely to talk to each other and create noise late at night. I understand that there's, you know, fishing pier is what it is. There's not much I can do about that, but for me, that was a complaint that will impact, you know, just the way the noise is going to travel across the water. The second thing I had was, you know, I didn't know and I didn't see anything in all of the plans, but I'm assuming and hoping that there'll be no lighting on the structure. The structure is literally opposite our house, opposite children's windows. I didn't see anything, so I'm hoping to get an answer on that. Just looking at the updated plan, I just had a question as to, it looks like the fishing pier goes outside of the right of way. And I assume all parties were noticed that was happening. I'm assuming there's an authority to do that. For me personally, if the T wasn't facing directly into the path of my backyard, that would be nice, but we'll take what we can get. I think they're mostly the objections I have from a property owner perspective and an abutting property. The concern I had around sorry, one more thing was, one of the complaints I had was the, riparian rights. So, you know, at some stage, I'd love to have the money to build a dock, on the property. And I had some concerns about the hydraulics plans, because they only addressed mostly the flows south of the bridge. Whereas I obviously live on the north, and the flow going the other way, wasn't in the pages that I saw, but I know that the objection was from Atlantic Marine, so there may be, I know there was a 900-page report, I think, so they may be covered elsewhere. So many others comment around safety. That's probably the biggest community concern I would have. You know, this is not going before Barrington or Warren. So there are people far more knowledgeable than I am in the area that may be able to better comment on this, but I just know personally from putting in a kayak, the first time I put the kayak in the water with she was probably 6-year-old daughter then, and thinking that I was a better kayaker than I was, just the way that water can turn and take you, you know, if you know, the engineers and the hydraulic, the people who have reviewed these hydraulic engineering are happy, then I'll let the professionals do what they do. But to hear them kind of talk about the whirlpools that maybe aren't covered, or I think that just from a safety perspective, you know, I'd hate to hear a, you know, kid in 10 years' time in a whirlpool that, you know, I probably wasn't aware of, or maybe we all weren't. I think that's a valid concern. And then, yeah, just the riprap, like, you know, the riprap in the plans directly impacts the southern side, the Atlantic Marine side of the path, but I have noticed on my side, there are 1 or 2 kind of rogue boulders kind of in the water as I put in the kayak. So, you know, I don't know how they got there, but I assume it's from the ice and lifting those and shuffling them around. So anecdotally, I've seen it happen. For me, it's not a concern because everything is well within the right of way. But you know, just the way that water flows, just making sure that we're all aware that you know, that the riprap is not going to go out into the channel and you know, in essence, someone else is put at danger. I think that's kind of most of what I had.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak?
I'd like to say one more thing if I would. By the way the water's running, when you're coming through in a boat, when the tide's going out, approximately 40 feet off the end of the dock, you have to open your boat up to fight that tide. Now that wake is literally from that wall to the dock, because you just can't go through at 10 miles per hour. You have to almost gun a lot of these small boats, you have to gun it just to make headway. But that leaves a huge wake that's coming over to all the boats. And we actually had a guy at the marina that wants him to pay for fenders if he's gonna leave his boat there this year because of the boat wakes that are coming off the boat traffic going against the tide is really, it's picked up tremendously. And they're just fighting to get through the tide. But that's something that, you know, the hydraulic, the flow charts don't show any of that. The boats going through the wake that's coming off those.
Okay, thank
so
you.
we suggested a couple of things that we thought might help, but those are just our suggestions that we thought would help with that. But you know, that's something else that I don't think anybody has done a study on or even looked at or considered. So if, and I know most of the people in this room haven't been there or voted there, I do all the time. And I see it all the time. I've been through there in my 19-foot boat, I've been through there in my Zodiac. And if you have a Zodiac, now there's certain times you just can't get through there. So you don't go up there to go crabbing at certain times, but it's a lot different. It's a lot easier to make a decision when you actually get to go out there and see what they're dealing with.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Close public comment.
Okay, I'll now close public comment. I'd ask the applicant to come back forward. Before we have the council ask you any particular questions, if they may have it, you've heard a lot of concerns, you've heard discussions, you've seen some diagrams. I just ask if you could respond to what's been put before the council.
Yeah.
So I would just like to respond to the comments about outreach. Since we were last here, I know that we had outreach prior to the last meeting, but since that time, we have had 2 in-person meetings with Marina, in addition to numerous calls, and I have them listed with the town council, the harbor master, Representative Knight, and other representatives from that area. So we have been in communication. While we probably did not host a public meeting, which I would happily bring. We have the manager of outreach with us tonight if you want additional detail of what those meetings entailed. But we have done more outreach than what was described in the testimony.
All right, so there's obviously been a lot said, and I think I personally sympathize and understand that these folks who live in close proximity here are trying to look after their best interests of the whole system. I think one thing that the folks of Atlantic Marine have made very clear, they want to see something done quickly. They want to see something done now. So the proposal that you guys have before you tonight comes with the engineering backing that tells us that it will make the situation better. So the diagram, which has been included in the packet, what's also here in front of us today, shows flows prior to the bridge demolition, flows current modeled flows in the river, and then flows post-construction of the design that you guys currently have in front of you tonight. And one thing we can say with certainty is that the flows are stronger today than they were prior to the bridge. And after the bridge is built, we'll go back to that very closely to what was there before. So in terms, as far as getting the quickest path towards resolving these flow and safety issues that have been brought up, it is our opinion that proceeding with the plan before us is the fastest way to get there. So that's in regards to the flow. In regards to the riprap on the southern side of the causeway, I think one piece that is not on this diagram here is the state right of way that is within the riprap limits, as we've discussed. The distance between these slips and that riprap is probably somewhere along the lines of about 30-35 feet. So that encroachment there is in fact to build a wall, such as Owen is suggesting. The issue with building a sheet pile wall, as Dave mentioned, are the overhead wires. So in construction, we have to observe offsets and distances per OSHA of those wires. That sheet pile wall could be built, as he's suggesting, on the south side, but in order to maintain the 10-foot offset off those wires, you would have actually more encroachment into there. It could potentially be done within the state right of way, but it would But that would now be a vertical wall. This riprap, much of it will be submerged under most tides. So, I wanted to clarify that point. And. Yeah, so anyway, so the wall that is proposed, since we can't do a driven wall, is a precast block wall, which is set with an excavator. And this riprap is just there to provide some global stability to that wall. So it is beefed up from what it's there, but we're talking a minimal encroachment into beyond the riprap that currently exists. And those sections are in the plan set, but I have copies of the plans. If you see,
We've got those, right?
Yeah. We've minimized the extent of that riprap by putting that wall. If that wall weren't there, our riprap would extend even further. So by having that wall, like Owen suggested, we have that in there.
Could you say that again?
The retaining wall that you were suggesting isn't.
It's when it goes up the riprap.
So we've closed public comment, so it's just the applicant right now. Anything else from the applicant to address what's been brought forth?
Thank you.
Any questions from council members of the applicants?
Just,
Mr. Gomez.
relative to the safety concerns, I think you just said you don't have any, is that correct? No. You said you have a safe situation, I think is what I heard you say. No. Do you have safety concerns?
Are you discussing in regards to the flow conditions?
That would be part of it, but fishing off riprap, there's a whole bunch of issues. And fishing off the bridge is an issue too, I think it's so too. And I know Ray indicated that we're building a bridge for bikes, but fishing has just been there so long that it forms, I think, a major component in the desire for the end product here that contain fishing. So safety was what came up to me with the changes you're making with the riprap, with the tidal flows. I happen to be an engineer also. It's just one of those things that I worry about. And I think that if you're wrong on that the state would face a lot of liability issues if boats get damaged or people get hurt or things like that too. So I think that needs to be considered. So I don't know where we're going, we should have a little more time, a little more thought on this. Your responses up there that I just heard said that everything's ready, we need to go fast.
We'll elaborate on the public safety. Again, moving forward with the proposal before us does also a lot for public safety of pedestrians. The current bike path detour that Jay describes that wraps around their house, you've got, utility poles and sidewalks. It's very narrow. There's been a lot of incidents. I've actually myself witnessed a biker coming down the bike path, smacked right into a utility pole that has a blue padding and there's signage, there's lit, but there's safety issues that by restoring the bike path, it's,
So that's one safety issue that you obviously clean up.
Absolutely, yeah. And so again, now having more opportunities and places for people to go fishing and biking and walking in a safer arrangement is.
I've just given you my concerns and I'll wait on discussion with the rest of the council members, but my biggest concerns were, the liability issues to the state, the safeties, the impact of the marina and that riprap thing. So you mentioned something about a possible approach to a wall that would go in sections.
Yes, that's what's currently proposed, yes.
That's what you currently propose? Okay.
Is there any other bridge close to that allows fishing on it?
Yeah, the Route 114 bridge, people fish on it. The only signage that's on there now is just over the navigation channel and then on the boardwalk side, but
How close is that bridge? About
So on the Barrington River, I would say. Just say a couple hundred feet. Yeah. And then the Palmer River, it's actually closer in proximity. I would say that's closer, probably 75 to 100 feet away.
Is that a bigger bridge? I'm not sure if we talked about it.
Yeah, it's the same. So these are like they're identical proposals and, you know, bridge types. The 114 bridge is also, they're both sort of interchangeable.
The only difference will be once the bike path bridge would be constructed, we would be able to remove the temporary detour that is currently on 114, which would allow for additional safety factor because you wouldn't have that conflict of people fishing off that bridge and pedestrians or bicyclists.
And that is a protected sidewalk. I think Mr. Woods mentioned some concern over fishermen in close proximity to vehicles. That there is like a highway guardrail that protects the sidewalk from the roadway.
Okay, just tell me one more time that newly created fishing area. That I think the gentleman said was right near his house and then you moved it to the other side. How big is that? And just reiterate that.
So the T section is approximately 25 feet, I believe, at the terminus, and the approach walkway longitudinally parallel to the bridge is approximately 40 feet.
And that will be newly created?
That is correct.
For the purposes of fishing?
Yeah, not exclusively, so, you know, folks wanna go sit and hang out, they can, but yeah, it's.
Yep, okay.
And that pier will also be accessible.
Okay, Mr. Flynn.
So is it your testimony that your current design, I'm talking about the area closest to the marina, is not going to encroach on the, for lack of a better word, backup space for boats leaving the marina, as has been suggested by Ms. Manelli and Mr. O'Rourke?
I believe I said that there was an encroachment of about 6 to 8 feet from the existing limits.
His suggestion is that a vertical wall would give some added buffering for boats being able to navigate that space. And you're saying that that's not necessary or would be impossible to build.
Can I show you?
Yeah.
So it in fact is a vertical wall proposed. And the slight added riprap here is just to give that wall some global stability.
But does that added riprap impede boats' movement in and out of their slips? Does it?
I personally don't, I think it does encroach beyond the line. I would leave it up to the council to determine that. It's about 35 or so feet.
So that's different from what we heard from Mr. O'Rourke.
Yeah, I believe Mr. O'Rourke said 4 feet. I think, when you meant, would you stand by that? It's 4 feet.
Oh, you have to-
Property line.
Yeah, that's, I can't have a debate.
Yeah.
25. And the other comment that was made is that some increasing would be increasing fill at the pier that you're proposing to support the new bridge might help divert the tidal flow towards the center of the channel as opposed to where it is going now. Are you saying that that's not accurate or not necessary?
The model we have on the graphic here shows what's proposed currently, which includes the limits of the piers that are shown in the plans. And if you look at what was pre-existing versus what's proposed, so like the left and the right of those two images result in fairly comparable results.
So you're saying it's not necessary?
Any other questions from the council of the applicant? Anything else the applicant wishes to add? No, okay.
Thank you.
Amy, anything you would like to add to enlighten us at the conclusion of all the evidence that's been before us as it relates to your original presentation and opinions rendered to now?
That's what used to be.
I don't think there's anything to add. I would reiterate that the staff conclusion was that that staff's opinion was that the objections did not rise to substantive, and that relief for not meeting a standard is in the form of variance, and the applicant has requested variances. Staff believes the burdens for a variance have been met. And the relief from the variance is the special exception fill in tidal waters for the bulkhead on the Palmer River. And that staff also believes that the burdens for the special exception have been met. However, that is for council to ultimately decide.
Okay. Any questions of Amy from council? Is the council ready or in a position to make a motion?
Do we do the variances first? Is that what?
We'll do special exception first.
I think you have to do a special exception because it's contingent upon the variance, yes.
Just to get it going, I'll support the special exception.
A motion has been made by Mr. Gomez to grant the special exception. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Russolino. Any discussion? Seeing none, I will poll the council on the vote for a special exception. Mr. Russolino.
Aye.
Mr. Gagnon.
Aye.
Ms. Reynolds.
Mr. Chair, I wasn't present at the October 24th meeting, 2023, but I've had a chance to review the record completely and I feel prepared to vote. Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn.
No.
Mr. Izzy.
No.
Mr. Gomez.
Aye.
I too, Raymond Coy, vote aye on the special exception. Next is a vote on the application seeking a variance. Is there a motion on that? I'll make the motion. I will make a motion to approve the application and the variance sought, predicated on all of the evidence that's been submitted to us, the testimony that's been presented, the review and staff opinions that have been afforded us here this evening. Particularly, it's been said that staff is of the opinion that the evidence as applied to our review criteria would support the granting of the variance. With that said, and for those reasons, and counsel, if I need to add anything else, I'm not sure. My motion would be to approve.
Based on staff's conclusion that the standards for the variance have been met.
Correct. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made by myself, Chair Coyer, seconded by Ms. Reynolds. Any discussion? Hearing none, I will poll the council. Mr. Russolino.
Aye.
Mr. Gagnon.
Aye.
Ms. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Flynn.
No.
Mr. Izzy.
No.
Mr. Gomez.
Based on the discussion with Amy in her presentations and her last statements, I vote aye.
I too, Raymond Coyer, vote aye. The application has been granted. Thank you, everyone, for your comments and the professional presentations. I know there's always sometimes some conflict or differing of opinions, but the council appreciates how it was handled this evening. We have more, right? Next on the agenda is proposed rulemaking before the council for review and action. I'm not gonna read all of them to the record. That's under 5 on our agenda. Who has that?
Bruce will have.
Bruce, please.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. So what we have tonight is consideration for adoption for 2 proposed rulemakings in 2 sections of the management procedures. It's section 1.1.4.6A and section 1.5.12. The first section, section 1.4.6A, that is proposing to eliminate the 3-day beach vehicle passes from the beach vehicle program. But the annual beach vehicle program would remain unchanged. The second section, section 1.5.12, would eliminate the 4th extension request, which requires council approval. Assents are valid for 3 years, and we would keep the 3 one-year extensions to that. So we're just proposing to eliminate the 4th extension request that requires council approval, and the other extensions can be done administratively. Both sections have been reviewed by planning procedures, and rulemaking was initiated on March 16th, 2024. A public hearing was held by the council on April 9th, 2024, and the public comment period ended on April 26th. We did not receive any questions, public comments, or correspondence, either in writing or in person at the public hearing. So if the council accepts the rulemaking, staff would recommend adopting the regulations as proposed.
Any questions of Bruce? What's up with it? Just the motion to approve the motion. All right. Is the council in a position for motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion's been made by Ms. Reynolds to approve the proposed rulemaking. Changes seconded by Mr. Flynn, and someone else said it to Mr. Gagnon. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll pull the council. Mr. Russolino. Aye. Mr. Gagnon. Aye. Ms. Reynolds.
Aye.
Mr. Flynn.
Aye.
Mr. Izzy.
Aye.
Mr. Gomez.
Aye.
I too, Raymond Toya, vote aye. Thank you, Bruce. That's all of them, right?
That's it.
Having nothing further to come before the council, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. It's a little easy.